Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is June 5. Today, as we continue to read about the divided kingdom, the nation of Israel in the north and the nation of Judah in the south, our focus goes back to Israel in the north, where wicked King Ahab is the king and wicked Queen Jezebel is his wife. There are probably no two people who are more wicked in all of the Old Testament than these two people, Ahab and Jezebel. And interestingly, they are married to one another. We've already been introduced to both Ahab and Jezebel, but today, as we continue our reading, we're going to see some unusual things that happen not only with Ahab, but between God and Ahab. So as we journey back to Israel, we see that the land of Syria is besieging Samaria. Syria is attacking Samaria, where King Ahab is. Now, Ben-Hadad is the king of Syria, or Aram, and Ben-Hadad sends some men to negotiate with King Ahab. And he says to him, or rather threatens King Ahab and says, "We're coming into your land and we're going to take your women and your children and your gold and your silver." And here's what's fascinating. Ahab actually says, "I guess that would be okay. I'll agree to those terms." But when the men go back and tell King Ben-Hadad that's not enough for him. He wants still more. So he sends them back and he says, "Not only am I going to take your women and your children and your gold and your silver, but I'm going to send men into your land and they're going to take everything. They're going to go through your house, through your palace. They're going to take everything that has any value to you." To which Ahab responds, "I was willing to give a little bit with your first request, but we're not going to go there on your second request." And so war is going to ensue between these two nations. And as it begins to brew, then God appears to Ahab and assures him that he's going to give Ahab victory over Syria. And that's kind of fascinating. These are really two wicked nations fighting against one another, but God is going to fight for Ahab. It shows us that sometimes beyond our ability to comprehend, that God sometimes uses wicked people or wicked kings to accomplish his will. In this case, he's going to aid Ahab in his battle against the Syrians, and as a result, Israel is going to defeat Syria in battle and defeat them pretty soundly. But under the section Israel Prevails Again on page 711, you have the officials of Ben-Hadad trying to suggest that it was sort of a lucky win for the Israelites, and they want to go to battle again. Listen to their words. Meanwhile, the officials of the king of Aram advised him, "Their gods are gods of the hills. That's why they were too strong for us. But if we fight them on the plains, surely we'll be stronger than they." And so he agreed with them and acted accordingly. The man of God came up and told the king of Israel, that is Ahab, "This is what the Lord says, because the Arameans think the Lord is a God of the hills and not a God of the valleys, I will deliver this vast army into your hands," and notice this part, "and you will know that I am the Lord." So even while God is delivering victory, he's saying, the reason I'm doing this is I want you to know that I am the Lord, that I am the one who is in charge here. So the Israelites inflict 100,000 casualties on the Aramean foot soldiers in one day. The rest of them escape to the city of Aphek, where the wall collapses on 27,000 of them. That is clearly not coincidental. That is the hand of God. God, once again, overpowers the enemy. And once again, we see this formula playing out. No matter who it is in battle, if God is on their side, they are going to be victorious. That is always the key. Now, Ben-Hadad realizes he's been defeated. He's begging for Ahab to spare his life, and Ahab agrees to do it. Ahab agrees to spare his life. As a matter of fact, when you turn the page and look at the top of page 712, Ahab says, "On the basis of a treaty, I will set you free." So he made a treaty with him and let him go. Then a prophet enters the scene. And the prophet rebukes Ahab by telling this story. He says there were some nations at war, and this man was given charge of one of the prisoners of war, and he was told, "You keep charge of this prisoner, and if anything happens to that prisoner, if he escapes your care, if you mess up on your responsibility, then it'll be your life for his." And the king had come along and seen this man who is troubled and asked him what the matter was. And the man says, "I was given charge of this prisoner, and I turn around and he's gone. And they told me it was going to be my life for his." And the king basically says, "Well, you made your bed, now you have to sleep in it." And he had really no pity on him. And as the prophet is telling this story, he turns it around on the king and he says, "You're the one who was given charge of a prisoner of war. And you're the one who set him free." Ben-Hadad set free. It's a very similar tactic to what we saw earlier Nathan used with David to confront him about his sin with Bathsheba. Basically, here the prophet says to Ahab, "You're the man who was given charge of a prisoner of war. You're the one who neglected your responsibility, and now it's going to be your life for his life." And so the prophet rebukes Ahab with that story. Peace with Syria happens over the next 3 years as a result of this treaty that has been made. Then we read about Ahab coveting Naboth's vineyard. Naboth has a vineyard near the palace of Ahab, and he sees it. Ahab sees it. He wants it for himself. He wants to have a garden of his own. And so he goes to Naboth and he offers to buy it. He offers to give him more money than it's really worth. He offers to give him a vineyard in another place, as long as he can have this one. But Naboth says, "I'm not interested in selling because this property belongs to my family. It's been passed down from generation to generation. I decline your offer." And if you look down at the bottom of page 712, Ahab goes home sullen and angry because Naboth the Jezreelite said, "I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers." He lay on his bed sulking. Ahab is sulking and refuses to eat. Jezebel, his wife, said, Is that how you act as king over Israel? Get up and eat." She says, "Cheer up, I'll get the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite." So she wrote letters in Ahab's name, placed his seal on them, and sent them to the elders and nobles who lived in Naboth's city with him. In those letters she wrote, "Proclaim a day of fasting and seat Naboth in a prominent place among the people, but seat 2 scoundrels opposite him and have them testify that he has cursed both God and the king, then take him out and stone him to death." Well, they follow her orders, and as a result, Naboth is killed. Jezebel comes to Ahab and she says, "I did it. You can have the vineyard now. Naboth is dead." And so Naboth takes that vineyard for his own. Elijah is going to tell the punishment for Ahab. The word of the Lord came to Elijah, "Go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, who rules in Samaria. He is now in Naboth's vineyard, where he has gone to take possession of it. This is what I want you to say to him," the Lord says. "This is what the Lord says. Have you not murdered a man and seized his property? Then say to him, this is what the Lord says. In the place where dogs licked up Naboth's blood, dogs will lick up your blood. Yes, yours. And also concerning Jezebel, the Lord says, dogs will devour Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel." Well, when Ahab heard these words, he tore his clothes. He put on sackcloth and he fasted. He lay in sackcloth and went around meekly. Now notice this. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite. "Have you noticed how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Because he has humbled himself, I will not bring this disaster in his day, but I will bring it on his house in the days of his son." So now, once again, this is a wicked king who's made some serious mistakes. He's been guilty even of murder, but because he repents, because he humbles himself in the presence of God, God gives him sort of a stay of execution. God gives him favor. Then we read about Ahaziah becoming the co-regent. Jehoshaphat is going to join forces with Ahab to reclaim Ramoth Gilead, and he's going to seek the advice of prophets. Ahab brings in 400 prophets, and they all say exactly what Ahab wants them to say, but that's not good enough for Jehoshaphat, so they call in Micaiah. Micaiah is one who always seems to prophesy against King Ahab, and Micaiah says you should not go to battle to get Ramoth Gilead. So 400 of the king's prophets have said, yes, go. Micaiah says, no. And we'll see what happens in tomorrow's reading, whether they go or not go, and what the results will be. Again, it's just a fascinating tale of people and nations who are striving to find their identity and striving to find whether or not they believe in and they trust in the God of creation. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.